On the evening of March 6, 2009, in the quiet tree-lined neighborhood of Crestwood, the lifeless body of Martha Whitman was found in her bed, her face frozen in a final, silent scream. To outsiders, it seemed as if the 58-year-old widow had peacefully passed in her sleep. However, as Detective Laura Evans dug deeper into the circumstances surrounding her death, the picture-perfect image of the Whitman family began to fracture, uncovering a tangled web of betrayal, obsession, and murder that would leave the entire community stunned. The beginning of 2008 had already been a difficult year for the Whitman family. Martha Whitman had recently lost her husband, whom she'd loved dearly for more than 30 years. With her house on Elm Street now emptier than ever, Martha was consumed by grief. It was during this time that Anna, her daughter-in-law, offered a helping hand. Anna and Martha had always been close since Anna had married Martha's son, Mark. Martha treated her more like a daughter than an in-law, embracing her warmly into the family. After Martha's husband passed away, Anna began visiting frequently, cooking meals and providing company to comfort her mother-in-law in this difficult time. Then, one chilly January evening, Anna stopped by Martha's house with a bottle of wine, hoping to cheer her up. They sat together in the living room, the fire crackling as they shared a deep conversation, moving from light-hearted subjects to more personal matters. As Martha opened up about her loneliness, Anna reached out to hold her hand. What began as a simple gesture of comfort soon evolved into something deeper. Martha leaned in and kissed Anna. Though Anna pulled back at first, she could see the vulnerability in Martha's eyes. Without fully understanding why, Anna leaned in once more and didn't pull away. From that moment, their relationship changed. What had started as a gesture of comfort and sympathy soon became something more intense, driven by a mix of grief, passion, and the secrecy surrounding it. They began to meet often, with Anna visiting Martha's house under the pretense of helping or spending time together. Each visit ended in Martha's bedroom, their relationship intensifying with each encounter. As the months wore on, the stress of leading a double life began to take its toll on Anna. She grew increasingly distant from her husband, Mark, and often lied to him about her frequent visits to Martha's house. Mark began noticing changes in her, sensing her detachment. Though he spent a lot of time traveling for work, when he was home, he couldn't help but notice how distracted and tense Anna seemed. She often avoided him, claiming she was too tired or busy, and he suspected something was amiss. Late at night, he'd come home to find her pretending to sleep, while during the day, she was glued to her phone, quickly putting it away whenever he entered the room. This story would soon culminate in a dark and tragic end, with secrets unraveling and the twisted bonds between family members leading to a shocking, irreversible conclusion. Whenever Mark entered the room, he noticed Anna hurriedly putting away her phone. When he asked her about it, she gave vague answers, only intensifying his suspicions. The growing secrecy and distance gnawed at him. Across the dinner table, he'd sometimes watch her, wondering what she could be hiding. But even in his wildest thoughts, he couldn't imagine the unthinkable, that his wife could be involved with his own mother. It was too disturbing a thought to consider. Meanwhile, Martha's attachment to Anna was turning into an overwhelming obsession. What had once been mutual comfort grew into a consuming need. Martha became increasingly possessive, demanding more and more of Anna's time, calling her incessantly and expecting immediate responses. She even grew irrationally jealous when Anna mentioned spending time with anyone else, including her husband Mark. Martha's fear of losing Anna spiraled into manipulation. She warned Anna that if she ever tried to end their affair, she might reveal their relationship, trapping Anna further. Anna was plagued with guilt for betraying her husband, for letting things with Martha go so far, and for being unable to break free. The situation weighed on her, but every time she tried to pull away, Martha's grip tightened. The stress took a toll. Anna couldn't sleep, lost her appetite, and was constantly on edge. At home, she became forgetful, missing school pickups, burning meals, and losing track of time. Mark noticed these changes and grew more concerned. He tried to ask her what was wrong, but she would just shake her head, tears in her eyes, insisting that nothing was amiss. By April, the affair had taken over Anna's life, becoming a dark force she couldn't escape. The once comforting visits to Martha's house had become a dreaded routine, Her marriage was crumbling under the weight of her secret. By January 2009, Mark was on edge, tormented by the changes in Anna's behavior and the chasm growing between them. One evening, after another tense dinner, he made a life-changing decision. He would install a hidden camera in their bedroom. Carefully concealing it in a vent near the ceiling, he set it to record everything, hoping it would reveal what was really going on. A week later, on a quiet Sunday, Mark retrieved the footage, locking himself in his office. His heart pounded as he scrolled through clips, initially seeing only mundane moments. But then something caught his eye. Anna entering the bedroom, followed moments later by Martha. His heart stopped as he watched in disbelief. Martha approached Anna, gently touching her arm, and they exchanged a look that sent chills down his spine. Without a word, they embraced, their movements growing more passionate. Mark felt the ground give way beneath him. His mind raced, trying to process the truth that his wife was having an affair with his own mother. He sat, frozen, staring at the screen. The betrayal cut him to the core. He wanted answers, but the enormity of the situation left him paralyzed. How could he confront Anna about such an unimaginable betrayal? How could he even begin? After days of stewing in his shock and misery, Mark finally resolved to confront her. One evening, after dinner, he gathered his courage and prepared for the conversation that would change their lives forever. When the children were asleep and the house had fallen silent, Anna sat on the couch, flipping through a magazine absent-mindedly. Mark, heart racing and hands trembling, sat down across from her. His face was serious, burdened by something heavy. He looked her in the eyes and, with a strained voice, asked her the question that had been haunting him, whether she was having an affair. Caught off guard, Anna quickly denied it, shaking her head and insisting that there was nothing going on. Mark, however, didn't relent. He leaned forward, his gaze piercing, and told her that he had seen everything. Frustrated, he confronted her, but despite his revelation, Anna continued to deny the affair. She tried to reassure him that he was mistaken, claiming he was imagining things, and that whatever he thought he saw wasn't real. Mark's frustration reached a breaking point. He raised his voice, accusing her directly of being with his own mother, his voice trembling with hurt and betrayal. Anna flinched but quickly composed herself, firmly insisting that his suspicions were unfounded and that he wasn't thinking clearly. Though she maintained her calm, the tension between them was overwhelming. The trust they had shared lay shattered. Feeling defeated, Mark stood up and left the room. He couldn't bear to be near her. He couldn't even look at her. The woman he had loved, the mother of his children, had betrayed him in the most devastating way. And to make it worse, she wouldn't even admit it. Mark felt utterly isolated, unable to confide in anyone. Who could he tell? Who would believe his wife was having an affair with his own mother? He felt trapped in a prison of grief and anger. As weeks passed, Mark's mental state deteriorated further. He was consumed by thoughts of the betrayal that had torn his family apart. The mere thought of confronting Martha made him feel physically ill, yet he knew he couldn't go on like this. One evening, sitting alone in his office, a dark thought crept into his mind. It seemed like the only way out. Martha, he thought bitterly, was the root of his anguish. If she were gone, maybe, just maybe, his life could return to normal. The idea took shape slowly, almost as if outside his own control. Martha always drank tea before bed, a habit she'd maintained for years. It would be easy, he thought, to slip something into her tea that would bring a swift and quiet end to her life, making it appear as though she had passed away in her sleep. The next day, Mark drove to a hardware store in a neighboring town where he wouldn't be recognized. He bought a small bottle of arsenic, claiming he needed it for a rat problem in his attic. The cashier didn't ask questions, and Mark left with the bottle discreetly tucked in his coat pocket. That night, as Martha prepared her nightly tea, Mark waited until she briefly left the kitchen. Quickly and quietly, he added a few drops of arsenic to the cup, his hands shaking but his resolve unbroken. When Martha returned, she picked up her tea and thanked him for keeping her company, unaware of what he'd just done. Mark could barely meet her gaze, feeling a pang of guilt momentarily, but he suppressed it, driven by a grim sense of purpose. Martha drank her tea slowly, savoring each sip as she chatted about her day. Mark watched her closely, waiting for any sign that the poison was working, but Martha didn't appear to notice anything unusual. She finished her tea, then stood up to go to bed, giving Mark a light kiss on the cheek as she passed. He watched her leave, his heart pounding. After an hour of waiting in the quiet living room, Mark finally crept upstairs to Martha's bedroom. She was lying in bed, her eyes closed, her breathing soft and even. For a moment, Mark thought the poison hadn't worked, but as he moved closer, he noticed her chest was no longer rising and falling. She was gone. Mark left the room and returned to his own bedroom, where Anna was already asleep. He slipped into bed beside her, his heart still pounding as he lay in the darkness, listening to the sound of her breathing. He tried to convince himself that everything would be okay now, but deep down, he knew things could never be the same. The next morning, Anna went to check on Martha, as she often did. She found her lying still in bed and knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. Shaken, Anna called out to Mark in a panic, and soon the house was filled with the sound of approaching sirens as paramedics arrived. The paramedics declared Martha dead at the scene, noting it looked like natural causes, most likely a heart attack in her sleep. Mark played the role of the devastated son well, feigning shock and heartbreak, while inside he felt a strange, unsettling calm. He had done what he thought was necessary, and it was over now. Anna, on the other hand, was shattered by the loss, crying for days as she struggled to understand how Martha could be gone so suddenly. Mark observed her grief with a mix of detachment and guilt. He told himself it was for the best and hoped their lives could go back to normal, though he knew he'd crossed a line that couldn't be undone. As days passed, Mark expected guilt to consume him, but instead, he felt increasingly numb. He buried the horror of his actions, locking it away in a part of himself that he didn't confront. He carried on with life, playing the role of the grieving son, hiding the dark secret only he knew. The investigation into Martha's death was brief. The coroner's report cited natural causes, and without any evidence of foul play, the case was closed. Mark had covered his tracks well, seemingly getting away with murder. However, the poison hadn't just ended Martha's life, it had also tainted Mark's own soul. The victory was hollow, a haunting shadow that would forever linger in the back of his mind. Detective Laura Evans, a relatively new but sharp-minded investigator, couldn't shake a feeling of unease when she reviewed Martha's case file. Martha was in good health for her age with no history of heart issues, and yet she had died suddenly in her sleep. Something didn't sit right. Trusting her instincts, Detective Evans decided to dig deeper. By March 10, 2009, Evans had started her own inquiry, reviewing Martha's medical history with her doctor and confirming that there was no significant history of heart disease. This only heightened her suspicions. Evans began questioning Martha's close family members, starting with Anna and Mark. She noted Anna's nervousness, initially attributing it to grief, but noticing an underlying tension. Mark, in contrast, appeared oddly detached and rehearsed in his responses, prompting Evans to keep an eye on him. On March 15th, Evans decided to order a second autopsy, a bold move without clear evidence of foul play, but one she felt was warranted. The autopsy results revealed what she feared: traces of arsenic in Martha's system, a lethal dose that would have caused her heart to fail. Martha's death had been no accident. It was murder. With this information, Evans reopened the case and redirected her investigation. Someone had gone to great lengths to disguise Martha's death as natural, and Evans intended to find out who had access to the poison and a motive to use it. Her investigation soon focused on the Whitman family, particularly Mark and Anna, both of whom had the opportunity. But motive remained unclear, until Evans uncovered a hidden camera system in the Whitman home, installed by Mark to catch his wife in an affair. When she reviewed the footage, she discovered something far more shocking: a secret relationship between Anna and her mother-in-law, Martha. The footage revealed a volatile relationship, alternating between arguments and passionate reconciliations, fraught with possessiveness on Martha's part and fear on Anna's. This revelation gave Evans a potential motive for the murder. If Mark had discovered the affair, he'd have a powerful reason to want Martha gone, but the affair alone wasn't enough to convict him. She needed concrete evidence. Evans intensified her investigation, looking into Mark's activities leading up to Martha's death. On April 2nd, she found her breakthrough, a receipt from a hardware store dated just days before Martha's death, showing the purchase of arsenic labeled as pest control supplies. It was enough to connect Mark directly to the poison that had ended Martha's life. The receipt was the final piece Detective Evans needed to connect Mark to the crime. By April 10th, Evans brought Anna in for another round of questioning. She could sense Anna was close to breaking, so she carefully laid out the evidence: the arsenic, the affair, the hidden camera footage. Anna appeared shocked. She'd suspected something was wrong after Martha's sudden death, but had never imagined Mark could be responsible. As Evans continued pressing, Anna finally broke down, confessing to the affair but adamantly denying any involvement in the murder. Anna's confession provided important context, though it wasn't enough to make an arrest. However, alongside the receipt and the footage, a damning picture of Mark's actions was emerging. Evans knew she only needed to wait for him to slip up. By June 5th, it was clear that Mark was unraveling. He became increasingly paranoid as he felt the investigation closing in. Tension showed through his irritability as he lashed out at Anna and the children, and he began drinking more heavily, his calm facade slowly breaking down. Recognizing the timing, Evans confronted him directly, presenting the arsenic receipt, footage of the affair, and the autopsy report. Mark tried to deny it all, but he was clearly cornered, and Evans watched as his composure finally broke under the weight of what he had done. On June 12, 2009, Mark was arrested at his home. The quiet town of Crestwood was shocked. Mark, a respected community figure, being accused of such a crime was almost unbelievable. The story quickly spread, filling the town with rumors and disbelief. By August 10th, the trial commenced in a packed courtroom. The prosecution methodically laid out the evidence: the footage exposing the affair, the receipt linking Mark to the arsenic, and the autopsy confirming Martha's cause of death. The defense argued that Mark had been driven to the edge by his wife's and mother's betrayal, but it was clear the act was premeditated. Anna took the stand, detailing her relationship with Martha and her mounting fear as Martha's possessiveness grew. She spoke about feeling trapped in the affair, but was visibly shocked that Mark had gone as far as to murder his mother. Her testimony painted a stark picture of a family torn apart by secrets, betrayal, and obsession. On September 5th, the jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning with a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. Mark was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the sentence was read, the courtroom was silent, the tragedy weighing heavily on everyone present. For Anna, Crestwood had become unbearable. The community that once embraced her now treated her with suspicion. Unable to stay, she packed up and moved far away with her children, hoping to start a new life away from the shadows of the past. By October 2010, the story of Mark Whitman's case had become a haunting tale for many. Detective Evans, who had worked tirelessly to bring the truth to light, wondered if this tragedy could have been avoided. Was it Martha's possessiveness or Anna's desperate search for freedom that had pushed Mark to this desperate act? Could things have ended differently if the secrets and lies hadn't led everyone down such a dark path? Be sure to subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories, where we delve into the mysteries and motives that lead ordinary people down extraordinary and chilling paths.